Good evening. Dan Rather with the CBS Evening News. President Reagan today officially announced his new peace plan for Nicaragua. And right away, it seemed to be a tough sell. A lot of doubts in a lot of places about what he really has in mind. The response was skeptical from all sides, from Nicaragua, from the Contra rebels, and from both Republicans and Democrats in Congress. Bill Plant reports.
President Reagan claimed bipartisan support on a new peace initiative for Central America in the face of heavy skepticism from some on the left who fear it's only a ploy to ensure continued aid to the Contras, and others on the right who fear it undercuts the freedom fighters.
This administration has always supported regional diplomatic initiatives aimed at peace and democracy.
The plan, worked out with House Speaker Jim Wright, calls for immediate negotiations for a ceasefire, which, once in effect, would end U.S. military aid to the Contras and Soviet military aid to the Sandinistas. It would also restore civil liberties in Nicaragua. The Reagan administration will not ask for new Contra aid before September 30th, nor, says the Speaker, will the President even talk about it.
While this peace process is being negotiated, pursued, we will expect you to refrain from any harsh partisan rhetoric aimed at promoting military aid for the country.
But many other Democrats are convinced it's a trick, an unrealistic proposal designed to ensure that the peace process fails.
We think that they only did this because they figured they didn't have the votes for Contra aid.
This has all the signs of the same old game that the Reagan administration has played again and again and again, with no serious intent to negotiate.
It's an effort to rehabilitate a flawed and failed policy, and it is a sham from beginning to end.
The administration vigorously denies it.
It's not a ploy. It's not just a ploy. It is a genuine effort, and the president believes that.
And that's exactly what worries many Contra supporters on the right.
I think they are snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
There are any number of reasons why the initiative could fail, not least because Contra leaders, who got a personal sales pitch from the president today, still insist that they must have a role in negotiating any ceasefire.
We are allies of the United States, but we want to do our part and put our ingredient inside here.
White House strategists are congratulating themselves tonight. In their view, with the Iran-Contra hearings barely over, the president has shifted the focus and put the Sandinistas on the spot so that if they don't negotiate, the Contras are almost certain to get continued aid. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
The foreign minister of Nicaragua said today he is, quote, profoundly suspicious of anything to do with President Reagan. However, he said his government would not reject the U.S. peace plan out of hand and without studying it. Foreign Minister Miguel de Soto made the comments in Guatemala, where he and other foreign ministers are preparing for a Central American summit beginning tomorrow. Juan Vasquez is there.
The Central American diplomats came to Guatemala to discuss a different peace plan, but the Reagan initiative quickly became the focus of the meetings. Central American peace talks have been deadlocked for years, but the U.S. allies in the region, El Salvador and Honduras, labeled the plan floated by the Americans as a positive contribution.
It widens the spectrum in order to achieve a negotiated settlement. I think that today we are better than we were yesterday. I am optimistic.
But diplomats from neutral Costa Rica, whose president put forward the original plan that brought everyone here, were less enthusiastic.
I think that we will continue with our plan. I don't care if it's a plan that comes from Washington. I appreciate their contribution, but I will continue working in our plan.
Washington's plan contains elements that have been rejected repeatedly by Nicaragua. The Sandinistas have said they will not talk to the Contras until the Contras lay down their arms. And the Sandinistas are unlikely to turn away aid from the Soviet Union, as Washington demands, until they no longer feel threatened by the United States. The chances for a breakthrough at this round of peace talks appear slim. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, Guatemala City.
A very strange thing happened at the Defense Department today. A man with a gun bolted past security guards at the Pentagon. He was shot dead. David Martin reports it happened within earshot of the U.S. Defense Secretary and the Secretary of State.
The main entrance of the Pentagon turned into a crime scene this morning when an apparently deranged man tried to barge into an area where the National Military Command Center is located.
He asked to enter the building and wanted to speak to someone about missiles. He was told that he could not enter. He had to have an ID card to enter. He just simply stepped back, put his hand in his pocket, pulled a small caliber handgun, and just immediately ran past the officers.
He bolted through these doors with his gun drawn and the guard running after him. If he had turned in the other direction, he could have gone up that escalator to a suite of offices where Defense Secretary Weinberger and Secretary of State Schultz were having breakfast.
The officer yelled for him to stop. The gentleman turned around with a gun in his hand. The officer fired one shot, hitting the subject.
30-year-old Dwayne Wallace was rushed to a nearby hospital where he died.
He had one gunshot wound to the back. Full trauma arrest, meaning that there was no pulse and no respiration.
Wallace from Youngstown, Ohio, had a police record and a history of mental illness.
He seemed like he was always worried, worrying about things.
All federal buildings in Washington have tightened security because of the threat of terrorist attack. Dwayne Wallace was no terrorist, but this morning's incident is a grim reminder of just how vulnerable even the Pentagon can be. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
U.S. warships moved into position today to guard 3 more Kuwaiti tankers. They are the next to be escorted through the Persian Gulf battle zone. However, Pentagon sources said they won't move until next week, after Iran ends its current naval exercises in the Gulf. Thousands of miles away, a crippled U.S. warship returned from the Gulf today. Peter Van Sant has the story of brave men home from hell.
The USS Stark, which lost 37 men last May after an Iraqi missile attack, this morning returned to its home port in Mayport, Florida.
On the Stark, Liberty call.
It was a time of reunion as 104 sailors who survived the attack were greeted by hundreds of loved ones from across the country. There was sailor Bobby Cumrow of Charlotte, North Carolina, greeting his mother, Jackie.
Right now it's just one big wagon load of relief.
For a while it was, just pretty rough, but we pulled together and we made it through.
There were also the 22 members of the Cumming family who had driven down from Sandusky, Ohio to greet their sailor, Kevin.
I just said that he loved me, and I told him I loved him, and we were glad to see each other, and we hugged, and it was just a great feeling.
Kevin Cummings says that after the attack, the crew wanted revenge.
After we were hit, and I knew that they had gotten away, and I knew guys had died, I just wished they shot him down. It's the only thing in my mind. I wanted him to die.
Many were quick to say that their hearts went out to the families who couldn't celebrate today, the families whose sons were lost aboard a ship that never fired a shot in its defense.
We cried for them this morning. We did. Watching these fellas come in, it's all I could think about was what they're going through right now.
For Kevin Cummings, thinking about his dead shipmates was overwhelming. For now, he has just one wish.
Let's go home.
You heard me say a comment when we got aboard Stark that we're all here. That included the 37 who lost their lives.
While the Stark's crew is back home, thousands more tonight are patrolling the dangerous Persian Gulf. One sailor here said, "I feel sorry for them. I wouldn't want to go back out there." Peter Van Sant, CBS News, Mayport Naval Station, Florida.
Welcome home. Still ahead tonight on the CBS Evening News, Cubans invade Indianapolis and the city is celebrating. But Los Angeles is worrying about the growing free-for-all on the freeway. Shootings, killings, fear in the fast lane. And 25 years after her still mysterious death, the enduring legacy of Marilyn Monroe. Freeway shootings to investigate. California lawmen today unveiled some new measures. These moves are aimed at stopping motorist-to-motorist violence that's turned freeways into something seen as shooting galleries. Is it a local phenomenon, or does it indicate something in the country as a whole, something in society at large? Terry Drinkwater looked into that.
As the madness continues to escalate, authorities today offered sizable rewards for information leading to arrests and proposed stiff new penalties for those convicted. This morning, the teenage driver of this truck was picked up by police. Steve Broderson and Rochelle Sabo's car was hit.
This first one went up, and it ricocheted, and it landed, like, down there by my girlfriend's...
You could hear it, like, went like that. It, like, sounded like it was back and forth, you know.
The tolls, now 18 arrested, 4 dead, and 15 injured in over 40 violent road incidents. mostly shootings, mostly on freeways, and sometimes without any apparent provocation.
The passenger leveled his arm out the window with a small caliber handgun, pointed it right at my face, and then kind of smiled and raised the weapon over my head and fired.
It's just very frightening. Makes you think twice about even getting on the freeway. Could happen any place.
I think about it on the city street. You're sitting there parked, they could get you.
Many who worry that the driver in the next lane is a lunatic are themselves now being extra cautious.
And you're politer. One young man in a gorgeous sports car on the 118 freeway, I was coming in, and I had the left-hand single on. He almost stopped in the middle of the freeway to let me in front of him.
Experts say the freeway incidents are a small symptom of a larger problem.
Generally, if we look at the rate of homicide in the United States over the last 40 or 50 years, there has been a continued increase of homicides.
California High Patrol?
Authorities believe the public is becoming unnecessarily hysterical.
I think the fear is that can we travel safely in Southern California? Vacationers particularly call up and say, we want to go to Disneyland. How are we going to get shot before we go there?
Massachusetts or anywhere else. I've never heard of it before coming out here.
I'm afraid to get on the freeway and go to Las Vegas.
Why?
Because I think it would just be me to be the one that would be singled out and got shot at.
And now at least one copycat has moved from the freeways to the busy Southern California skyways. The pilot of a Cessna says he was threatened by the pilot of another plane who flew close alongside and pointed a handgun. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Pope John Paul reportedly has agreed to meet with American Jewish leaders before he comes to the United States next month. Many Jews and others were outraged earlier this year when the Pope granted an audience to Austrian President Kurt Waldheim because evidence is strong Waldheim helped in Nazi war crimes. A Jewish group in Washington said today the Pope has agreed to discuss it with American Jews in Rome this month. So far, the Vatican has not commented. With Soviet help, Fidel Castro has made Cuba a world-class power in sports. But after nearly 3 decades of communist rule and Marxist-Leninist dogma, Cuba's economy is in terrible shape. Victoria Carderi reports.
Every morning in Havana, Cubans strain to join the government's new national health campaign. Daily exercise is Cuban Premier Fidel Castro's prescription for a sagging population. But Castro's having much more trouble trying to whip Cuba's flabby economy back into shape. And as the revolution creaks toward middle age, it has become the dictator's most overwhelming problem. In one of Havana's poorest neighborhoods, a pair of jeans sells for the equivalent of $143. At a nearby market, ketchup goes for almost $8, rice nearly $10 a bag. The average worker's salary is $156 a month. He complains it's been 4 or 5 years since his building has had water. Lines for water and bread are common. Castro recently acknowledged that Cuban life is at a low point. His solution is a campaign he calls rectification. He wants Cubans to embrace the original spirit of socialism and accept shortages and austerity measures as part of living in an equal society.
Castro's return to hardline socialism comes at a time when other communist countries are experimenting with Western reforms. Castro believes Cuba's brief flirtation with the ways of the West was a failure.
Gone are the farmers' markets and other private sector initiatives of the early 1980s, shut down because Castro believed too many comrades were becoming capitalists. The Soviet Union keeps Cuba afloat with more than $10 million a day in aid. Still, many complain about the quality of life. A 19-year-old is asked if people want to leave. If Fidel opens the port of Mariel, she says, everyone will go. He'll stay here alone. More than 100,000 Cubans fled to Florida during the Mariel boat lift. Rumors of another mass exodus surface each time a refugee sneaks out of Cuba. This year, nearly 70 have made it to Florida on small rafts or boats. Many of them are children of the revolution, who know no other system but Castro's, and who don't believe he can steer the revolution into the future using a model of socialism that may be out of date. Victoria Corderi, CBS News, Havana.
The Cuban contingent at the Pan American Games in the American Midwest will attract a lot of attention, but Cuba's best are drawing a mixed reception, and they face stiff competition from the county fair. Frank Courier is there.
The Cubans have landed. From Havana to the Hoosier heartland, hundreds of Cuban athletes arrived today amidst tight security and mixed reviews in Indianapolis, host city to the Pan American Games.
I think they're here for one purpose, and that's to compete and have fun.
You get communistic countries coming in, there's going to be ill feelings. There's no way to get away from it.
With the Pan Am torch just 100 miles from Saturday's opening ceremony, the Cubans are hungry to win. After boycotting the Los Angeles Olympics in 1984, they hope to beat the Americans at their own game, baseball. Fair enough, some say, but when hometown organizers announced plans to hoist the Cuban flag over the American Legion's war memorial, outraged Legionnaires cried foul and won.
It's a communist country, and it's a communist flag, and I don't agree with the communist flag flying over our American flag.
But it's sports, not politics, that's consumed this bedrock Republican city. The Pan Am Games are expected to attract 500,000 spectators and nearly 5,000 athletes from 38 nations in the Western Hemisphere. While competitors practice last-minute twists and flips and entertainers rehearse musical dance steps, everyone, from cab drivers to storekeepers and cops, is learning to speak Spanish. And in a city eager to make friends, learning a new language is as tough on athletes as it is on townspeople.
Oh, mi español is muy débil. It's not really good, but...
The people here is very nice.
In tango and disco. That means I have a record.
With a burst of Hoosier pride, civic leaders hope the Pan Am Games will bring big league status to this once droopy Midwest crossroads some people call India No Place.
India No Place is no more. It's disappeared.
But for country folks like Milburn Weaver, the Pan Am Games are no match for sweet corn on the cob at the county fair.
They don't interest me at all, for I don't aim to be there.
For more than a few, the hog judging at a county 4-H barn is a lot closer to home than a fencing match at the Hoosier Dome.
We're involved as a family with it, and we've always been around it, and it'll be here next year, and the year after the Pan Ams won't be up in Indianapolis again, you know.
Still, for many here who will be watching this world-class rivalry among nations, it is not so much a U.S.-Cuba showdown for medals as it is a 2-week battle to win international respect for Indiana. Frank Courier, CBS News, Indianapolis.
Now, you may remember, how could you forget, our report yesterday about pitcher Joe Niekro of the Minnesota Twins. The old knuckleballer was thrown out of the ball game against the California Angels after trying to fool umpires by throwing away a chunk of emery board from his hip pocket. Umpires had confronted Niekro after suspecting him of doctoring the ball, which is against baseball rules. Well, today, the American League announced that it's suspending Niekro for 10 days for defacing the baseball. Niekro says he'll appeal. Cancer. Jesse Unruh was 64. Among other things, the former Democratic leader was known for originating the saying, "Money is the mother's milk of politics." Marilyn Monroe died of a barbiturate overdose 25 years ago today. She starred in no more than a handful of what might be called memorable movies, but in the years since her death, Marilyn Monroe's story has flowered from legend to the stuff of myth. That life, that death, have assumed an enduring significance. David Browning looked for the reasons.
Oh, do you feel the breeze from the subway? Isn't it delicious?
For 25 years, Marilyn Monroe has served as a kind of timeless Technicolor mirror into the American mind on how women view themselves and how they're viewed by men. Pop stars like Madonna keep the Monroe image alive, and young fans are drawn as much to the original as to the copy.
I love Marilyn Monroe. She's so pretty.
She's nice, and she's pretty, and she dresses fine.
It's a phenomenon all the more remarkable when you consider that many of the young women drawn to Monroe's resting place today weren't even born when she died. Something about her that both attracts and troubles them so.